Fantastic.
So, I'm very excited because we are going to do a review and for early review for Space Ghost #1. This is a new book from Dynamite Comics. I've been waiting for this for a little while because David PEPOSE, like he's a creator that I've been following on the internet. He's been on the show, or he's been on the channel. We talked to him about The Devil That Wears My Face from Mad Cave. We also talked a little bit about his upcoming Punisher run because right after we had scheduled the interview, the announcements dropped from San Diego Comic-Con, I think, or New York.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, we got to talk about this Punisher. So, yeah. Let's talk about the creative team here. Oh, actually, I don't have it here.
Hang on. I can tell you.
It's here. So it's award-winning writer David PEPOSE, artist Jonathan Lau, and Taylor Esposito doing the letters. Space Ghost. Before we get into the actual review, can one of you guys fill us in on who the hell is Space Ghost?
Josh?
Before his
late
night show.
Okay. No, so I don't know how deeply they actually go into his background in the original animated show. But he's kind of like a galactic spaceman or galactic space cop. And that certainly applies here. I don't know if they ever, I mean, every show from the 70s had kid/animal sidekicks, which is why I'm still constantly, it was not a fever dream. It actually happened. The Happy Days animated cartoon had Fonz's dog and, for inexplicable reasons, a time machine. I don't know why those things had to come together, but they did. But yeah, no, so we get Jan and Jace showing up in this, and Blip, who are his sidekicks from the cartoon. I don't know if there's any much more to say about it than that. Someone else jump in.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need. Yeah, you got it.
Cool. Let me read the synopsis, then we'll get into our actual thoughts. I love this synopsis. Is very extra. Greed and corruption flourish in the darkness between the stars. With territories of the Galactic Federation spread far and wide across the vastness of space, pirates, hijackers ransack the distant colonies with cruel disregard for the innocent scientists living within them. Poor scientists. Yet there's a cosmic vigilant who metes out justice. I've never read that word before, I don't think. Is that right? Mets, METES, meets out justice? Okay. Throughout the galaxy, bringing vengeance to those who prey upon the defenseless. Some say he's a policeman who has abandoned the structures of law. Others say he's a phantom, the sole survivor of a war-torn planet. And those who have survived his wrath claim he's more of a force of nature, able to bend the very elements of creation to decimate his enemy. They call him the Space Ghost. That's pretty fucking cool. Pretty cool. So I'm gonna throw it over to you, Clay. What did you think of Space Ghost #1?
Oh, I dug it. I mean, it's a great setup because I don't really know the true origins of Space Ghost from the cartoon. So this kind of gives you the basis of a scientist who has these two kids, and Blip, who turns out to be the most important scientific discovery ever. That's how you keep a hold of that monkey. And they're raided by pirates, where we get to meet Evil Brack, which is I absolutely was my favorite part of the comic. I love the Brack show so much, and it's like, but he's based on a villain, from the original cartoon back in like 67, 68. And so these two, they're onboarded by these two creatures who are from, I guess, Brack's planet. Do you know what his planet's name is, Josh?
I do not remember now.
Yeah, and so he's battling with the kids after their father's killed, but we don't ever see the body. And so he's just shot, and so they're on the run this whole issue, and it is fun. I definitely on board with the second issue.
Nice. Jeff, what about you? What did you think?
You said Jeff. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I enjoyed it. I like how I'm not totally familiar. I remember watching the old Hanna-Barbera stuff. and then there was a DC did put out like a mini series called Future Quest that he was a part of,
Yes.
which combined all the Hanna-Barbera properties. And so this one is like almost, I don't want to call it the dark reboot of Space Ghost, but it does go a little bit harder than what I'm used to seeing Space Ghost being. So he's kind of like Space Ghost, but just a touch of Batman kind of thrown in there, kind of.
Yeah.
Which is super cool because you're basically dealing with a blank slate when it comes to Space Ghost. I mean, nobody really knows, you know. So you get to kind of do whatever you want. So it is very intriguing to see where this goes, as you know, because he could be a very boring kind of like vanilla generic superhero, but they, you know, are giving him some kind of, you don't know exactly what his history or his origin story is or whatever. So it's very interesting. I like it.
I'm taking like the David Pepos history I know from like Savage Avengers and going, I hope he goes, you know, hard like he did in that book in this book, because really, if you talk about people holding Space Ghost to his origins, you're going to talk about people who are older than me who watched the cartoon, because everyone else knows him from the talk show in the 90s. So there is no like hard origin for Space Ghost.
He does have an uncle that sounds like Randy Macho Man Savage, according to the talk show.
Oh yeah,
and that cover did go hard.
Yeah, and I mean, and to his credit, it sets up well the tone of the interior book, right? Like you see that cover, and you're not going to think, "Oh, this is going to be lighthearted kid fare," right?
That's right.
And who were the other villains that he should run into? So he's met Brack, and he's got two. Like, is it
met two in this one? You also saw Tanzit early on.
Okay.
And I just want to remind everyone, I have it queued up. I'm not sure it'll come through. Again, I couldn't decouple their voices from coast to coast when reading this. So when Tanzit showed up, he had this very like, you know, plain Nebbishy voice because he did it in that. And then, of course, when Brack shows up, I just keep hearing Brack. I mean, so that was like the only issue I had. Well, that and one other, but I mean, but apart from that, it was great. Like I really liked it. I did feel some of the writing was a little clunky. So, for instance, what was the purpose of the dad reminding his son how Blip is more important than he knows, when later it's very clear he knows when he explains what Blip is? I'm just like, what was the point of that, right?
No, I thought he only said that because his dad had just told him, and then he saw his dad die. So like,
well, all right, but if his dad had just told him, he wouldn't have known what like Blip stood for and what Blip could do, right?
Oh, see, I think they know Blip. They just didn't know like all the stuff, how important he was. Maybe.
All right, I mean,
I see what you're saying. I mean, I guess I didn't run into that same thing, but
I mean, it could be on another level that we haven't gotten to yet,
right? Which is fair.
So.
Yeah. But I do want to give credit. The art in this is amazing. It's really nice. I loved it so much. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'll keep reading it just because it's Space Ghost is a character, and I didn't ever read the future stuff that you referred to, Jeff. But Space Ghost to me was always a character that the design always kind of it always had more potential than I think what we got in the show, right? Like you see him go like, hey, he should be like a badass Batman, Green Lantern hybrid. We never really get that in the show. And this seems to be it. And I'm super hyped for it. So
yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the art, because this Jonathan Lau dropping him in like this. Like,
that's
that's cool.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So and then as I'm going back, when he drops into from the ceiling, so does he? I don't really understand or know what the full extent of his actual abilities is, because you can see through him, right? So he's definitely ghosting in as he just bursts through this the wall or the ceiling here to, you know, save the kids. But then he solidifies again because you can't see through him anymore on the next panel here where they're fighting. So like that's gonna be really interesting. Like his shield, his deflector shield that he has. It's pretty interesting, and kind of how
he can fly through space on his own. He can turn invisible in space, and he has these beams that come out of his wrist and I think it's from the suit. Yeah, he does. He does that.
she picks up the gauntlet afterward. Yeah. So, and then one more time, I really like this panel.
Yeah, that's.
But then the very next panel is great because they're like, "What are you?" And he's like, "A ghost." And then it's just a shadow of him just pummeling the shit out of Tanzit. And I was getting very that opening scene of Batman from the Batman vibes, right? It's like, yeah, right.
So I quite enjoyed it. I don't have a lot of history. I didn't even watch the Coast to Coast show much either. I just kind of see the memes and then
go to that YouTube. Just put it on in the background. It is amazing.
Yeah,
and it was two of the big writers on it were Evan Dorkin and his wife's name. I'm blanking on her name.
Sarah.
Yeah. Fuck.
Damn it.
I know. But yeah, that was their first like kind of non-comic writing gig, and then from that I
Mad Magazine and
they did, but also like we got that pilot for Evan Dorkin's. I'm blanking on all of it.
Sarah Dyer.
Sarah Dyer, thank you. Yeah, we got that pilot because of their work on Space Ghost. So,
Daniel, I think you need to come up with a supercut of us just trying to remember stuff.
It's gonna be Jeff and Clay for like 30 seconds and me for like 5 hours.
I'm just as bad. But the thing I'm looking forward to is because we have the Space Ghost show, we know the villains and we've seen Brax. So we have Zorak and Moltar who haven't shown up yet in the comics. So I'm kind of curious because like we see what he's done with Brack. Are we going to see like the level of villainy from those guys too?
Yeah.
Which one's the praying mantis?
Zorak.
Okay.
Zorak. I wonder if they're going to get the rights to any of the other like Hawkman or Birdman.
Man.
What is
Harvey Birdman?
Thundar the Barbarian or anything else like that.
That's the thing with those Hanna-Barbera that I love is like, I don't know why the WB kind of doesn't do anything with them. Every now and again, they get rebooted into some other format. Like, we see the 90s talk show. Then we had the Future Quest. And I mean, they've all kind of had their own comedy bits from the 90s. Harvey Birdman is probably my favorite show from the 90s Adult Swim era of Hanna-Barbera's rebooted stuff.
Honestly, about 10 years ago, I was fully expecting like them to be like this movie property has been, we're gonna do a universe of this, of all the old Hanna-Barbera stuff for the movies, and I'm surprised it never happened.
Oh yeah, I would love to see it. I don't know. They I don't think they even print, or they do print on demand for these cartoons now. They don't even I don't think you can buy them in box sets or anything. There's nothing being printed anymore from them.
I can't go to my local Suncoast and pick up the DVD set.
Yes, for us physical media people.
All right,